Here we are. We're diving into our new Empathy in Action CNY series, and that is collecting stories from people around the Syracuse community. And those stories will come together and give us a picture of a moment in time. And this is definitely a moment in time all over the world, but specific to Central New York. We have an incredible community here. We've got wonderful people doing incredible things. And this series we'll be diving into various parts of our community and how they come together. And I am thrilled to have Jason Timothy here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I've got a really wonderful introduction for Jason here that I'm going to read, and then we'll get into learning about how he's dealing with things here. So Jason is active with Red House Arts and Rarely Done Productions, two local theater companies, and he works in marketing, lives downtown with his husband Matt and their dog Lucy. He has spent quarantine exploring Syracuse by bicycle, making impulse purchases online, aren't we all? Leading theatrical reading online, and demonstrating and protesting for social justice in Syracuse. There you go. There's the picture.
Very vague, but yes.
So we'd love to hear from you, what you're doing these days, how things have changed, and how you're faring this living downtown in Syracuse.
Sure. Well, I, like most people, on March 16th, found out that my workplace was closing down. I didn't quite know what that meant on that day, but we all soon learned. And I sort of jumped into finding things to do immediately. I like to stay busy. So I started coordinating some online activities for Rarely Done Productions, one of the theater companies that you mentioned that I work with. A lot of online shopping, a lot of hiding packages from my husband relative to the online shopping. And then George Floyd made national headlines, and there was a movement here in Syracuse that I became involved with quite regularly, a daily sort of involvement. And now I'm kind of taking some time for me again as other businesses are starting to open. My work has not resumed yet. So I've started pushing the physical boundaries of my physical exploration of Syracuse. So I'm getting outside of the city limits now and exploring some areas around Syracuse.
Well, that sounds incredible. Wonderful. Getting out there,
yeah.
Especially this weather here has been amazing.
So beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're very lucky. It's strange to think that when we started this, we were dealing with snowstorms, and
yeah, exactly.
Now here we are. Yeah. And it's like, turn the air conditioning up.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us would have predicted that we would see the change of seasons happening.
Right.
But through this experience.
But a perfect season to do it is what I've been saying, because with the growth and watching the earth come alive, it's been really enlightening for us, or at least helping us through this.
Absolutely.
So, a couple questions for you.
Sure.
I've always been curious about how strong this movement is, and regarding George Floyd and racism and getting out there. And I have to wonder if a lot of it is sparked by us being in quarantine. So is the ability for so many people to be involved, so many people who are on social media, have time to spare and have time to go out there and actually march or meet or go to a rally. Do you think that has really influenced that?
Absolutely.
The revolution?
Yeah, I don't think it's the spark. I think the spark, of course, is and there have been so many sparks. It's the continued, very visible, recorded often injustices that are happening around us. But I think quarantine has kind of been the gasoline that this spark has really, burned a lot brighter and a lot longer. And I do think, I think what is really impressive about this movement in this moment And of course, I'm speaking only from my own perspective and my own opinions. But I think that in the past, we've marched, we've had rallies, and then because we live in this capitalist machine that keeps us all so confined and obligated, those things kind of die out. And of course, quarantine has allowed that not to happen. But I think, even more than the rallies and the marching, which I have participated in quite a bit, and I think they're very important. But there's also other things happening that I don't think happened before. So one of the first things I did was I got a reading list from a friend, and I went online, of course, because online shopping is my drug of choice these days. And I was both disappointed but very excited to see how many of those titles were sold out and on back order.
Oh.
So I think there's a lot of stuff happening that's not visible. I think there are a lot of conversations that are happening behind closed doors. I think there are people who saw the spark but didn't participate in the burn previously that are getting involved in whatever way they're comfortable and in whatever way is safe for them. And I say safe meaning in a way that they can protect their white fragility, or kind of have some learning and growth that's not public, and just safer for them. So yeah, I think, to your point, I think quarantine has been fantastic for social progress. I think that the big benefit here, though, is how many people are aware of the issues, whether that's social issues pertaining to race and the inequalities in the systems that we exist and live within, or economically, how this pandemic has affected people so differently. There's just a level of awareness right now that I don't think I've ever experienced in my lifetime that's really exciting and motivating for me.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I feel the same thing. And the other thing is the media coverage that has been all over every single thing. And I think we spoke before about how, all of these incidents were happening before. They might have even been put on camera before, but now media is actually paying attention to it. And so we're getting it from all different angles. And
sure, and we have time to follow up. So we know what's happening after the fact, right? So we knew where there were issues with police brutality, but I'm privileged. I assumed that the people responsible were being held accountable to some extent.
Right.
So it's that follow through and saying, okay, so I knew this injustice happened, but now what happens? So to see pictures of one of Breonna Taylor's killers on a beach in Florida this week, that ignites a whole new level of awareness and rage and hopefully action on the part of people that are responding similarly.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing too, about as we're going back to work, I have a fear that we're going to lose that momentum. So, are we going to lose the time that we had to pay attention? Is media going to stop covering the after effect of each one of these and what the process is? And how do we keep this going? I was encouraged when you shared with me the new organizations that were started in Syracuse and are going right now that I want to make sure that we highlight. Last Chance for Change, Rebirth Syracuse, and CCSSR Empowerment. So they're new organizations that we can get involved with, learn about, and hopefully as we get back to work and we might lose some time during the day to pay attention or get involved, we know that these organizations will carry this on. Is that the way that you see it?
It is the way that I see it. And those are all wonderful organizations. They're all well represented on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to look them up, you can just do a search for those names. The third organization that you mentioned is an all-female executive team, which is also something new that we're seeing. Of course, there's great intersectionality in all of these issues that we're paying attention to, but there's also great power in being able to bring together people who have had common experiences to better address that intersectionality. But what I would say is that I think that as businesses open up and we go back to some new normal, whatever that ends up being, I think that we'll see the effort and the dynamic change. And it's important that we have organizations like the ones you mentioned and organizations that have been out there fighting this fight for decades now. they're the ones that are doing the really difficult work. They're the ones that are getting up and speaking before our elected officials. They're the ones that are pushing for reform and change within. I think on a broader scope, what can't change at this point is, now that those of us who know better, Maya Angelou said, you do the best you can until you know better, then you do better. There are so many of us, and I have always considered myself to be a fairly progressive, empathetic, open-minded, accepting person. And I started reading How to Be an Anti-Racist. And the first 2 days I really struggled, and I thought, this isn't me. Like, I am the change. And when I started to really reflect and realize, as progressive as I thought I was, I really was doing a lot of things that were very problematic. So I think now that we have this awareness, we can do better. So I think it's the individual interactions, and it's the way our individual experiences change that keeps that change happening for so much longer. Because you're right, I'm not going to be able to march every day when I go back to work. But you know what I am going to be able to do? I'm going to be able to acknowledge when there are situations where those inequities occur, where there's a power balance that's structured in a way that's not fair. And I'm going to be able to address those things and speak out and affect little changes. And if everybody in our society is affecting a little change a little bit at a time, I can't think of a more powerful movement.
That is, and I agree that is the most powerful way to go forward. And I hope there are hundreds of thousands of people who feel the same way that you just stated, because this is a huge opportunity. And I keep on saying over and over again that this is an opportunity to open yourself up, learn, and be ready to educate. So here we are. If we can take in all of this, learn from it, be open to learn from it, realize that we all have something in ourselves that needs improvement, and then be willing to go out and share that with other people. So there's the human connection, there's the relationship, there's the way to make things spread. And I agree that the protests and the rallies won't last forever, but this is a way to do it. So we skipped over you, and I want to make sure that instead of it was just so easy to jump right into, the state of Central New York and the community with what's everything that's going on. But how are you dealing with, besides the online shopping, which, there are some businesses that are booming and then others that we're trying to support. But how are you personally dealing with all of this?
Well, initially not great. My initial experience was sort of one of avoidance. And like I said, I kind of dove into what can I do to keep busy. I am very open about the fact that I have panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. So I think that part of my initial reaction was very much just sort of me going into survival mode. I'm really happy to say that I feel that this has been an opportunity for me to learn to better manage naturally all of those issues. The fact that I've suddenly found myself in a globally universal experience that was negative, at least that was my perception at the time, was that we were in a negative shared experience. I had to give up a certain amount of control, and there was a lot of there was a lot in that for me that was very reassuring, knowing that we were all having this brand new scary experience together. And I think slowly what happened over time was I started to really understand that we were just having this globally shared scary experience right now in an open, very obvious kind of way, when really, what is life but a globally shared scary experience that we're all kind of figuring out on our own. So there's been a lot of introspection and learning that I've been able to do for myself. I'm really happy to say it's been a couple of months since I've had a panic attack, which, I mean, that used to be an every other week sort of experience for me. And I think part of it is just having the time to think. You know, my brain isn't so busy working on or for or at other people, that it's kind of figured out how to better tend to itself and better take care of itself. Um, and that's been a lot of reading. It's been meditating every day. It's been figuring out how to get yoga back into my schedule, which, hey, taking 10 hours of work out of my day is a great way to
Yeah.
make room for some yoga, right? Um, so, you know, I think that the longer this goes on, the more I kind of understand about what I want my experience here on Earth to be. And the better equipped I am to set boundaries and make decisions and set intentions moving forward, to make sure that I don't, you know, wake up one day thinking, oh my gosh, my life was about a job. I think none of us want to find ourselves, unless you do really great important work, like some of us are lucky enough to do. You know, I'm a marketer. I get people to spend their money. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be on my deathbed the kind of thing that I can feel really fulfilled by and proud of. So this has been a great opportunity for me to reassess, reprioritize, replan. It's also strange. So I've only been married for 2 years. I don't know if you know that. And my husband works in restaurants, which are crazy, crazy hours. So I had also become very used to having this very busy, fast relationship where we were connecting for little bits of time here and there, and it was very sporadic. And all of a sudden, very early in our marriage, we found ourselves in, I live in Merchants Commons. I'm in our common area right now. We live in a 1-bedroom, open floor plan apartment. It's about 800 and something square feet, with a dog and a cat. And all of a sudden, we couldn't go anywhere, and we were stuck in this space for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that was really kind of, in the beginning, it was very scary, and it turned out to be, what a blessing. Who gets a chance to spend that amount of time without any obligation, without any outside distractions, and just get to learn about somebody and, you know, explore things we hadn't discussed before. So that was also really just an amazing experience. Am I answering the question? I don't even remember now.
Yeah.
You
So
see, you just let me talk and I just go on and on and on.
I love it. I keep on thinking, you know, kind of like a juggling of priorities. And I wonder how many other people are going through that, where it really just shook everything up so much that it realigned, kind of, you know, gave a chiropractic adjustment to priorities of your life, where, you know, obviously work is not the end all, which is what a lot of us learned. You know, this is life. This is what it means. This is what you do. You know, every single time you meet someone, the first thing you say is, "So what do you do? So what do you do?"
Right.
I mean, that's the priority. And I think I love to hear that this really has done some aligning, and I'm going to have to ask that of other people I interview to see if that's done the same thing, because
I
I
hope
love,
so.
yeah, I love that, you know, connection became so important, because that is so important. I mean, I think that's the meaning of life that I know. It is connection with others, and and then, you know, how do you want to spend your life, and how can you set those boundaries now so that you don't fall back into crazy work life when you're worrying about something when you get home, and then you stay awake all night because you're wondering how you're going to deal with it the next day, and then you get up the next day and you have to go deal with it. You have a full day ahead of you anyway. But how do you take these practices into that life, and so that you can adjust that and prioritize? You know, that'll be a huge lesson for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think we're already seeing that. I think you know, we saw that with the reopening protests. We see it to some extent with, you know, just the willingness to wear a mask. There's definitely a faction of people that think that the world is going to be unchanged after this, and whether that's you know, a belief based on pessimism or optimism or wherever that comes from, I think that the trick for those of us that don't want to go back to before is going to be stepping back regularly, which is what this whole opportunity has been for us, right? An opportunity to really step back and look and explore and question things. For a lot of us, we're making less money on unemployment than we were making when we were working. And I was terrified by that prospect because of my online shopping, my love for online shopping. But, I learned that we're kind of dropped into this life. So, all through school, we hear you've got to get good grades so you can get into a good college. And then college is all about, taking the right classes and finding the right major so you can get a good job. And then you go right into and everything is just about this work. And you don't realize how expensive it is, even once you're working, just to live that life, whether it's, grabbing prepared foods on your way home, taking an hour to cook dinner with my husband every night was not something I ever would have. I'm not a fan of the kitchen. I never would have thought that's something I want to do. I'm going to miss that. So, we've already said we need to make sure 2 nights a week minimum, the two of us are in the kitchen together, and we need to make sure that's scheduled, it's on the calendar so that it happens. So I think if people know what changes they want to see, it's about making a plan to stick to it, right? Got to have a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Be proactive and set it up
Absolutely.
Prior,
yep.
So you don't get stuck once you get in there.
Otherwise, this system is set up to let us all slip right back in. I mean, it's beneficial for the 1% if we all just slide back into complacency. So
yeah.
Hopefully I won't, knock on things.
Maybe I'll just call you every now and then and say, how are you doing on that plan?
Are you cooking?
Right. Yeah. Are you cooking? One thing is that I've always felt, and nothing is black and white. I have this total feeling nothing is black and white, that everything is gray actually, and you have to work your way through it. And the more that you can learn about a situation, the more you can navigate your own way through that gray. But I also feel that there is fear and there is love. This is one of my favorite things that I say. And we choose which one. I mean, every single day, every single minute, whenever, we're choosing between the two. And I really believe that the conscious that's going into this on not wearing the masks and wanting to go right back to square one, and being ready for this to be over, that in their mind they set it up that it's over and it's done and we're back to normal now, that's the fear of change. And so many people have fear with so many things adjusting and things like that. And one thing that I also believe is that the people who are dealing with this best are the action takers. So the ones that are always optimistic, even though they might not even know it, but there's an optimism about life and kind of that whole love process that goes into it, that this is the way we should be. And so immediately taking an opportunity during a pandemic, during chaos, during craziness, to say, okay, what can I do? What's my purpose here? What should I be doing? What action can I take? And I think I've been speaking with action takers every single time I get on one of these calls, because it's the way to move forward. And it might be an individual way, but I think it's moving everybody forward with you who has, is in connection with you in any way. Do you agree? I mean,
Absolutely.
I know I'm talking off here.
Yes. And I think further to your point, I think that everybody's taking action, whether or not you're aware of the action you're taking, whether or not it's purposeful and mindful action, you're taking action. And we see a lot of that. So whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's wearing a mask, whether it's reopening the economy, you're right. I agree 100% on this spectrum. It's love to fear, right? And the people that are on the fear end of that spectrum, those who are taking action or want to take action need to be very careful that you choose the right action to balance that out. So if somebody is living in that place of fear, you can address that or help them with that if you're not all the way on the opposite end of love. So yelling at somebody about being selfish for not wearing a mask is not going to convince them to wear a mask. telling somebody why they're racist for saying all lives matter is not going to help them understand what's wrong in that line of thinking. Explaining to people that you're afraid to go back to work and that they're being insensitive to your wants, needs, or desires by promoting the reopening of the economy is not going to make them change their mind. We have to attack it from a place of love. So I would say for all the intentional action takers, keep taking action from a place of love. And for the people that don't view themselves as action takers, take a step back, try to find the ways in which you are inadvertently or without intention taking action, and make sure that you're aligning those actions in such a way that you're representing the positivity and the love and the change that you want to see, because that's the only way we all get through this together.
I love the way you describe that. That really puts a picture on it that, you know, we all know that, you know, if someone says something nasty on a Facebook post, there's really not a reaction that's going to change their mind. There's just a reaction that you think is an immediate impulse that I have to put out there. But if you actually want to make a difference and you want to try to make a difference in someone's life who maybe is struggling, first, understanding that all of that's coming from fear and putting, you know, you can't put yourself in their shoes so much, but understanding that there's something basic there that's making that happen. It's not malicious. It's not, you know, it might feel malicious, but there's something back there. And then taking the ultimate love, like the compassion, and this is the best thing I can do. This is where I need to come from, and this is the best way to make a difference. So
it's the difference between treating the symptom and treating the root cause of the illness, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, so many people are out there treating the symptoms, and even, you know, there are difficult conversations, and I've had a lot of them, with regard to social policy and social justice, where, you know, it's easy to say, well, this person doesn't right now share my viewpoint or my perspective. I'm not going to say opinion, because I don't think it's an opinion. I don't think it's a matter of opinion. I think it's perspective and experience. And it's really easy to say, well, this person's a racist. This person, you know, just doesn't like somebody else. Typically, and you know, having grown up the gay kid in a very small school, I will tell you, typically when people don't like you, it's because something about you makes them unhappy or uncomfortable with regard to themselves. So, you know, I think that, and this is why I love How to Be an Anti-Racist is such a great book. And the author is coming to the Onondaga Friends of the Library in October, hopefully. So looking forward to that. Also wrote Stamped from the Beginning. He's amazing. I can't remember his name. It's Ibram, something with a K. And White Fragility is, you know, another great book, but it also, when you understand and acknowledge what white fragility is, it's so much easier to have a conversation. Case in point, a local activist, Todd Panic, said to someone in a thread yesterday, you know, they were talking about white privilege, which for some reason is a really polarizing concept for people. And I was reading these comments, and it was really interesting because someone said, you know, the problem people have is the fact that we're saying white privilege, because white is an identity. And if we say you experience white privilege, we're attacking somebody's identity. And then it's really hard to understand and move forward. And she said, you know, what if we said the privilege of being white? And I thought, you know, here's somebody who's really thinking about how people are receiving and experiencing even a conversation, and looking for ways to say, let me make this a little more comfortable for you and a little more safe for you, so we can have a good conversation that nets some real change, right? And I thought it was so smart. And, you know, I've been running around for months now going, what do you mean you don't think white privilege is a thing? Rah, 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 rah. And this person just being empathetic and understanding and wanting to really affect change with a little bit of love was so much more effective in one sentence.
Right. And, you know, listening to what someone's saying. And so instead of going right for, you know, the racist reaction or anything like that, listening and realizing that, oh, they're just having a problem with the way that I'm saying this. Maybe I can rephrase the way I'm saying it. You know, how simple is that?
So much more manageable, right?
Yeah, but really putting that forward to listen. I was just writing something this morning, and it was something about seeing is easy, listening takes focus, and I'm putting together a whole thing around that. But yeah, but just paying attention to what someone's saying as they're saying, being present to the moment. Yeah. So,
but of course, that's another skill set that we lost in our busy, busy world that hopefully
did.
now people can learn again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working on it.
Me too.
Yeah. So this is really wonderful. I love the scope of things that we've gone through here, and I know that we could probably sit here and talk for hours, but I just want to give you the opportunity if you want to add anything in that we haven't touched base on.
I love that you're having these conversations. I love having conversations with you. So if you want to do this again off the camera at any point in time, you just let me know. No, nothing I want to add. I came into this without an agenda. I enjoy speaking with you. And we had a great conversation a couple days ago, and I've been thinking about a lot of the things we talked about then. And I know I'll be thinking about a lot of the things we've talked about today too.
Sounds good. Well, I will be checking in with you, especially when your work opens back up again, making sure that you're eating dinner. Maybe we can do like a virtual dinner meal or something.
That'd be fun, yeah.
You know, it would be fun. I'd like that. Okay. Well,
that's another advantage. We're all learning how to use Zoom, so we can do things like that. We can cook together.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and take care of yourself. And
you too.
And I will reach out again. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.